I talked to your mama.
Yeah, she said she talked to you.
And I introduced her to Jana. You met, hey Jana, you remember talking to Troy's mom at Winchester?
Well, she enjoyed meeting y'all too. Yes, for
She is spry.
I missed this last weekend our service thing because I was with my family up in Gatlinburg. We had gotten a cabin, and Mom went with us, and she went on a mile hike. My 90-year-old mother went on a mile. Now, I was assisting her.
She went.
I couldn't see her because she was looking at the ground, but she made it.
She was there.
She was there.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't that something nice?
She's an impressive. She's an impressive. Yeah. She's with it. She's with it. She's got the energy. She was dolled up. Yeah, his mom. So yeah, she came over to the table, talked to us.
Mom's 90,
All right.
91 and around Christmas time.
All righty, we're ready.
I strive to be like her. I know, it's goals.
All right, Romans 12. I am going backwards. Romans 12 next week. Next week we're not in here. The week after that, Romans 8. Yeah, next week, by the way, everybody's in the auditorium for the Thanksgiving Devo. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Okay, Romans 12 I chose because, just to be honest, I chose it because some of these passages are my favorite to teach. And so I guess that's my prerogative. So I chose Romans 12. I just, Romans is chock full of so much. If you can get 9, 10, and 11 through your system, chapters 9, 10, and 11 through your system, and you will survive chapters 9, 10, and 11. But 1 through 8 and 12 through 16 really roll off the tongue well, and they provide good discussion. Not that Romans 9 through 11 doesn't, but you better put your waders on and have good shoes on, good footing, and be ready to dig in a while because there's some stuff there. So anyway, hey Kelly. All right, Romans 12, just starting out in verse 1, and I would like to read the first 2 verses, or have somebody read the first 2 verses, please.
I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect.
All right. Verse 1, what does the word beseech mean? You got another word? Urge? Implore. Okay, let me take that one for a second. I appeal, urge, I implore. I'm trying to think of the name of the song. It's a hymn, and the chorus ends with, open, I implore. But I cannot, if you can think of that. Why keep Jesus waiting? Woo! For those at home, Mr. Chamberlain got that question. Mr. Chamberlain. So open, I implore. And what do you say? It's a pleading. It reminds me of Matthew chapter 25, Matthew chapter 25, the first 13 verses is the parable of the wise and the foolish virgins. And when you get toward the end of that parable, it's going to be around 10 or 11, probably 11 or so. Sir, open the door for us. Because when they got back from realizing they had to go get oil, when they got back, they found the door shut. But it's clear that they thought, well, all we got to do is knock. He knows me. Right? That's a lesson for another time. You know, he knows me. Don't forget the guy over here. Don't forget when we're to get an account. And Get the count up. Yeah, there's one in here, and Janet's pregnant, and yeah, right. That would be a surprise. They're assuming the door's going to open, and of course you got the sad news in the very next verse. I don't know you. I implore you. I plead. And that's just not, hey, here's something to think about, is my point. That's just, hey, just a little something. Just let me throw a little seed out to you. That's not what Paul's doing right here. When he pleads, implores, urges, it's a strong urging, beseech you. I want to check a footnote I've got right here in verse 1 that regarding the word beseech, urge. It says urge right there, so that's good. I beseech you, I beg you, in other words. I implore you, please hear me, and I'm going to do so by the mercies of God. That is, by and because of the mercies of God. So what he's going to say in verse 1 and 2 is, listen, this makes sense. I urge, I plead with you, I implore you to understand the of course nature of what I'm saying right here. Given all this, then therefore, he doesn't have the word therefore, but he's sort of got a therefore mindset right here. Because of this, let me urge you, I plead with you to present yourself sacrificially before God. You're presenting yourself sacrificially to Him. And you all know the word sacrifice as well as I do. You know sacrificially as well as I do. And we might describe it, what does that word mean? But the picture of it is something that is not token. Have you heard this phrase, somebody makes a token appearance somewhere? Anything with the word sacrifice or any cousin of the word sacrifice is not a token appearance, a token effort, a token mindset, a checking of a box, you might say. I urge you, and I urge you to also include, in this urging, I include this idea, I think Paul is saying, that it's reasonable. Now, where do I think Paul says that? Or why would I think Paul says that? Is meaning that. Because depending on your translation, it's in the verse. In this translation, it's the next to last word of verse 1. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you're presenting your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Why is it reasonable that I would present myself sacrificially to God? Why is it reasonable?
Been building the case for 11 chapters.
Yeah.
When you get to this point in Romans.
Yeah.
All the things, laying out God's plan from the beginning through the Jewish people up to Jesus, and saying, what else would you do?
Yeah.
This is it.
This is it. It's the most natural response to understanding what's been done. It's the most natural response.
This one says intelligent service.
Intelligent service, reasonable. Okay, let me use that for a second. I'm glad you said that. Intelligent service makes sense, right? I mean, if I'm going to use the word intelligent or intelligence, could we use the word sense in there? The S-E-N-S-E. I had to check myself for saying, I spelled that right. S-E-N. Not S-I-N-C-E, but S-E-N-S-E. Intelligence, sense. Have some sense about you. This fits. This is logical. This is, if y'all will pardon the expression here, and I'm not being flippant with the whole idea of faith, but I think you'll understand what I mean. I'm going to say what I think people understand. This should really be a duh. D-U-H. Right? There is a sense in which this should be a duh. Now, our lawyer friend over here, Brother Dodd, did you hear the phrase that he used? I don't know if he remembers what he said, but I do.
It's on purpose. Paul's a lawyer too.
Right.
We're buddies.
Her buddies. And you know what he said? Anybody remember? He's been what for 11 chapters? Leading up to this, he said he's been building a case. Building a case. I've never been charged with being in a courtroom and having to build a case, okay? But NBC has a lot of law shows. And so, what's the idea? The idea is you've got 12 people who are over here in this box. And over time, you're systematically making it the next obvious step for them to take would be to say guilty. Or the next obvious step for them to take would be to say not guilty, depending on which side of the room you're on. Which table you sit at. And you're building a case so that when you get to the end, you're not having to convince in one closing argument. Is that a fair way to say it? You're not having to convince them in one fell swoop. You've been doing that throughout the trial. And so this is Paul's mindset, again, to what's happened over the 11 chapters. So I'm begging, I'm imploring, I'm beseeching, urging that you're going to present yourself sacrificially before God, which that's going to include holiness. And it's reasonable that you would do that. And now part of that, verse 2, means you're not conforming to the world. You can't be offering yourself sacrificially to God while you are of the world, conforming to the world. Those two things can't go together. You and I can do a lot of things together, multitask, but certain things can't be done together.
One of my favorite observations I've ever seen in the commentary about these verses is playing off living sacrifice. And to be a living sacrifice means you've got to voluntarily climb up on the altar. But it also means you can climb off.
Yeah.
And we want to climb off and conform.
Yeah.
Not stay up there and be the sacrifice.
I've been up here long enough, but the flames are getting a little closer, so I'm going to jump off. So don't do this thinking you can do this while staying conformed to the world. And then he uses the term that we talk often of. Maybe try to get a picture, paint a picture when we're teaching a class or preaching a sermon about it. Transformation. Does anybody have a word besides be transformed in verse 2? I would not think so, but okay. So don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed. Where's that start? Where does transformation start? Next phrase of the verse. Starts in your mind, by renewing your mind. Now, what word does Scripture use often to refer to the mind, but is not mind? Heart. Matthew 6, verse 21. Tell you what, I may want to get some context here before verse 21. Hang on. All right. Yeah, I want to go 19 through 21. Matthew 6, 19 through 21. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up treasures for yourselves in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. Why? You know what the next verse says? For where your treasure is, what's going to happen? Your heartbeat goes also. Now, left ventricle, right ventricle, left atrium, right atrium, aorta. That's pretty good for 8th grade health. Eighth grade, class in 8th grade. And other, I can name more too. Your heart, what you talking about? Your mind. Okay, so it's important. Transformation starts on where you take your mind. Why? Because there's a warning that if you take it in the wrong place, your mind is going to stay there. So what you do affects how you think. Let me say something more about that. We all understand by logic that what you think affects what you do. That's logical. How you think, what or how you think affects your choices. Why did you do that? Well, because I think this. Oh, okay. It's logical to say what we think affects what we do. Do you know what Scripture teaches just as much, if not more? And these two things can coexist. They're not polar opposites. They don't, or not contradictory. Jesus talked more of this. Not what you think affects what you do, but what you do affects what you think. What somebody continues to do affects what he or she wants to believe. What they like to do affects what they want to believe. There are people who cannot lay down, who cannot take up, buy into, hold to, order their life by certain aspects of New Testament faith because they are unwilling to stop doing things that they like. Well, you got a problem. It either I have to make this okay, or I've got to lay down what I enjoy, something I enjoy. And what do people want to do? They like what they like. They want to keep doing what they want to keep doing until later they find out there wasn't a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. The commercial sold them on. Or the lyrics of the song, or the photos of the magazine, or the whatever. So transformation starts in the mind. Verse 2. So don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, transformation doesn't take place like our favorite Saturday morning cartoons, or whatever we called them back then, shows. I'm going to show my age, but I'm looking around the room at, give or take, very similar ages. Shazam. And I don't mean Gomer Pyle's term. I mean, Mighty Isis. Shazam and Isis. Show of hands. Oh, great. Look, by the way, look around, guys, at who doesn't know what we're talking about.
Hold on, there was a movie in 2019.
Did they remake it?
Talking way before that.
I was like, that's actually pretty funny.
Wonder Twin.
Don't have to rub it in.
Wonder Twin Powers. Okay, activate, form of, whatever. So yeah, and so we grew up on this idea of this is the coolest thing. They could just go over and transform into whatever, take on whatever, and it's right before your eyes. Shazam and Isis could do, Superman, he just had to go in a phone booth. And when he came out, he could fly. And the Hulk just had to get mad. He just had to get mad, and then, that sort of thing. Okay, that's fine. Those are great pictures and fun shows for kids. That's not the reality. Transformation does not take place like that. And this is why transformation is harder today, I think, for some, than it used to be, I think, for earlier generations. Because people now have never known a time when you couldn't get things done fast. comparative to earlier generations, right? And now you get mad if you're waiting, 2 minutes in the line at Chick-fil-A. And I've waited a lot longer than that in the line at Chick-fil-A. But we start getting antsy in time frames that 2 and 3 and 4 and obviously further back than that, generations would look at us like, what's your problem? Because they had to wait for everything. So this instant gratification that we desire from God, yeah, I'm all for transformation. I'll have some of that. Like you're ordering at a restaurant, and so, okay, this should be out here within the next 10 or 15 minutes. That's not the way to look at verse 2. Back to Matthew 6:21, what you give yourself to, eventually you become. That's the way Dad used to say it. Where your treasure is, or your heart be also. Okay? That, in other words, what you make your treasure, your mind follows after. And if transformation starts with the mind, then transformation takes place with a long series of continuous choices for the mind. Choices that reject and choices that dive in somewhere else on purpose. I cannot transform without a continuous series of decisions. Continuous. Anybody else on the first 2 verses? I love the first 2 verses, so I was going to stay there longer.
I think about the soils when they cast the seed.
Yeah.
You got the thorny ground, the rocky ground, the wayside, and then the good soil. So how do we keep our mind good soil? Because you have to be willing to
Churn it.
absorb. You just can't kind of lock in and not digest.
Yeah. Good soil has to be fed good stuff. And it's got to be churned, and it's got to be watered. And we all know I planted, Apollos watered, and God gave the increase. And that took place over a period of time. Transformation takes time. This idea that I come up out of the water of the baptism and God zaps me with something, and suddenly, I don't understand how, but suddenly I have I have zero interest in. Now I need to have zero interest in. But this idea that I'm zapped with something, now I am equipped with something then. What's that? What am I equipped with at that point? And you shall receive,
Spirit.
yeah, the gift of the Holy Spirit. Okay, that's an equipping. But Andy still has to do the accessing of the right things. Yeah. And so good soil has to stay good soil by what it's fed, nutrients and so on. Did you have anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that a little bit. We were talking about the mind and thought patterns, et cetera. For us, it would be, you talk about feeding it, where do we go for entertainment? What movies we watch, what kind of music we listen to, what books and magazines exist anymore. Do we
Right.
read, what articles we're reading, right? What apps or what do we subscribe to, right? What's in our feed? What's the algorithm feeding? That'll tell you a lot about yourself. What the algorithm's feeding you on your social media.
Yeah.
But that.
Or that they're listening.
But that's huge because I heard it broken down like this. It's absolutely true. If Satan is great at this, mastered this, so if he knows the adversary, for him to come at us through, I'd say, the front door of reason, we were talking about what makes sense, he doesn't have a lot to stand on. He knows if he tries to come through the door of logic and reason, well, there's firewall there, right? We have guards there. Where we're more susceptible is the back door of imagination. And that's why the entertainment is so dangerous, because we drop our guard. It's just a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this song, right? But it's just a joke.
Yeah. Lighten up.
Yeah, Satan knows this. He's been around, been doing this a long time. Again, he knows, okay, what I have to offer, especially for a believer, it's going to be met with, that's fortified. Logic, reason, we can easily, like, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? Why, no. But yeah, you can, like a morphine drip, I guess. You're letting, you're listening to this, maybe a comic who's a bit raunchy, or you're watching a TV show that's got some risque scenes in it, right? That's just this one show. It's just this one song, right? Or one artist that I listen to, right? That'll wear that down.
How's the frog get cooked in the water? Yeah, we all know that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Okay, so pick it up in verse 3. For I say through the grace given to me that to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. By the way, that ties into the first 2 verses, because I could easily just say, well, I could see where some people would need to be extremely vigilant, but I fill in the blank, right? But here's the warning in verse 3. Not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. By the way, let me, to piggyback on Kalen's statements. I am gettable. I'm gettable. Now, it doesn't take the choice away from me. Don't fear it to the idea of I'm gettable and there's nothing I can do about it. No, there's plenty you can do about it to make yourself less gettable. And even unlikely to be had. But don't think that the moment I decide I am impenetrable. Is that a word? Yeah. Did I say that right? Like when we never thought our house would have been broken into. Why? Well, I live in a good neighborhood. I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life. They don't break into houses over here. We got good neighbors close by. We keep an eye on each other. Well, I've got locks on the doors. It's not like I've got a door with no lock on it. Well, I've got to fill in the blank, and then you walk in and one day and a guy's in your house. That happened to me. Guy's in your house. No, without invitation. You know how bad that scared me? And I'll tell you why it scared me. Not just because there was a guy in my house. But it scared me because the only reason I went home was because I left my cell phone on the kitchen counter when I went to my first appointment that morning at 8 o'clock, 5 minutes away from the house. Well, the way I had to go back to the office was I had to cut right back by my house. So it was easy enough. Well, I'll just get it. I'll stop back by and get it and then head to the office. Had I not left my cell phone, guess who came home 5 minutes after I ran that guy out of my house? Guess who got home from where she had been that morning? I wouldn't have been there, and she'd have walked in on a man in our house, with a man in our house. That's why I was scared.
To play off of Kalen and your comments, imagine your house is your brain or your thoughts, and you had an intruder come in, and how did you be holy for your house in that moment?
Yeah. I tell you, you know how I was holy, by the way, after the moment? Prior to that, how long was that ago? Was it 17, 18 years ago or something? We didn't have an alarm system. I didn't want to spend the money. That's the bottom line. Bottom line, I didn't want to spend the money. But I rationalized that, well, that stuff doesn't happen here. That's over in a different zip code. How long do you think it took me to... Within an hour, I had an appointment. And I guess it was the next day, or 2 days at the most, 2 days later, maybe.
You told the story before, so did he just leave when you
You gotta tell us how you got him out of there, expound on that, it may not be important, but, curiosity. We're all curious what you did to get him out of
I know
there.
the reference to that.
I told him Jana was coming home in 5 minutes. And he said, I'm leaving. I don't want to incur the wrath. He was downstairs, and I came in on the main level, and he was downstairs, and I heard the door open down there. It had a specific sound, and based on where I was standing with the vent right there, that vent went right down next to that door downstairs. And so I could hear it, and it hurt. Now, I was already suspicious, and that's another story as to why I was suspicious. So I heard that door open. There was also a car in my driveway I didn't recognize. That's one.
Yeah.
The sound was two, in the house was two. I could have gotten fooled with the car, though, because we had a relative that was needing to come by and drop something off, Jana's niece, and she had just married a guy from Arkansas, and I'd done that wedding, and it had Arkansas tags.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
So I thought she's come by. And she had a key anyway. She had a key to the house. She was the boy's primary babysitter.
Yeah, wasn't that guy?
It was not them. It was not him. So, but there were other things that made me suspicious. Like the car did have Arkansas tags, but I also thought they wouldn't drive that car.
No,
Yeah. When I looked inside, it looked like it was somebody living in their car.
yeah.
So that had me hesitant as I approached the door. Anyway, yeah. So I heard him go out, so I turned to run down the back steps just in time to see him shut his door and start to peel out. And stupid me, I've trained for this all my life up here. Jump off the deck because I don't have time to, so I go down like 2-3 steps, and then I just jump because he's speeding up the driveway, and I want to land and turn and get the tag as quick as I can. And if I'm going, or
Yeah.
like I would have to do it now, I wouldn't have gotten that. So anyway, it is. Back to the 70s. Yeah, there it is. Back to the 70s. Yeah, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, which I did going down those steps or jumping. So what did I do? Immediately, I forgot the cost. The cost didn't matter. The protection mattered. So we got to, as we sing sometimes, and other Bible verses will say, we count the cost. For we, gettable as we are, for as we have many members in one body, but all members don't have the same function, so we, being many, are one body in Christ and individually members of one another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. Let me take that phrase for a second, let us use them. That's not, I want to lead singing. Let me lead singing. That's not, I want to let us. It's, you use them. You employ them. You employ them. You employ yours. You can't employ his, but you can employ yours. And so on and so on. The let is similar to, somebody go over to James chapter 2. Go over to James chapter 2. Hold your place here. Somebody go to James chapter 2 and count how many times in the first 4, maybe 5 verses of James 1, I'm sorry. James 1. In verses maybe 2 through 5, how many times does the word let appear? It's at least 4. I know it's got to be at least 4. James 1. Anybody there? Am I in the right chapter? Let.
How far you want to go through there, because he keeps using it.
He keeps using it. So just to say in the first 5 verses or so.
2 or 3 through 6. 3 through verse 6 at least.
3 through verse 6, so not 4.
9 and 13.
So we keep going, verse 9, verse 13, we're still there. Okay. So a bunch in that chapter, just early in the chapter. Now, what's the idea? He's talking to you. He's talking to the reader. He's saying this is a choice. You see to it. You see to it. Very much like Jude.
Sure.
Yeah, be sure. Make sure. Ensure. Yeah.
Ensure that patience.
Yeah. Ensure, not the drink that some of us are not far from having to take, but E-N-S-U-R-E or I-N, you can make the case for either one, for a protective idea. Ensure that you're going to do this. It's like Jude, which just has one chapter. It's in verse 21, where Jude will say, keep yourselves in the love of God. Now we say, God loves me. God loves me. Yeah. But there's 2 sides to the equation. You keep yourself in the love of God. Verse 21 doesn't suggest it's somebody else's responsibility. It's not the preacher's responsibility to keep me in the love of God. It's my responsibility.
The prodigal son, he could have just stayed,
Yeah.
but he decided to go out.
Yeah. And then he could have stayed and he decided to come back. By the way, in that parable, there is a word. It's in the verse, depending on your translation, it says basically this. Most translations will say, and when he came to himself. Okay, the Greek word there is came to his nephesh, N-E-F-E-S-H, if we're translating, which means back to right thinking. Which means what? What is Jesus saying in the parable? When he was out there doing that, he was out of his mind. He wasn't sophisticated, educated, sophisticated, advanced. He was out literally crazy. I mean, logic demands if he had to come, he had to come back to his right mind, means up until that point, he was out of his mind. Well, the same thing is this idea of guarding. Stay in, ensure, stay in or come back to right thinking. Again, verse 2, it starts with the mind. Okay, so he gets into serving God with spiritual gifts in this section, and he's saying, all those gifts are different amongst the body, let us use them. You ever heard, well, I tell you what, finish this for me. Use it. Or lose it. Everybody gets that. See, that's the warning. It's not just the need, it's not just the prescription. The prescription is for a reason. Why does a doctor give you a prescription?
So you'll get better.
So you'll get better or won't get ill again. At least soon of the same thing. Right?
Mine is to exercise them accordingly.
Exercise them.
That's the wording.
That's what mine says.
No, I hate that word. Something about that word I don't like. Yeah, makes me tired. Use them or exercise them. Yeah. And he goes back through at the close of verse 6. Some, it was a gift of prophecy. And he tells them how. Ministry, verse 7. Teaching, verse 7. Exhortation, verse 8. He who exhorts. Does anybody have a word starting verse 8? He who exhorts. Anybody have something besides exhort right there? To mean, a special type of encouragement. Giving, the ability to give. Do so liberally. Leading. People have leadership skills. Mercy. Some people are just tremendously gracious, merciful people. And there's not a day in your life when it wouldn't be good for somebody to show you mercy. And to be cheerful doing it. By the way, I like that combination, close verse 8. He who shows mercy, to do so with cheerfulness. Because I could do this in mercy. What do you need? Right? The tone of voice, the body language just makes them want to go, no thanks, I'll wait for the next nice person to come by. You know? No, I'll do it. What do you, how much you need, or whatever.
Or somebody says something, and they say, did I offend you? And you go like this, no.
Yeah. The exhale before, which takes away everything you said. Yeah, so if you're showing mercy, do so with cheerfulness. So, one body, many gifts. One body, many gifts. If a man's gift is this, let him that. If it's this, let him that. If it's this, let him that. This is Romans 12. Did you know that 1 Corinthians 12, many if not most, maybe all of you know this, but 1 Corinthians 12, same writer, same author, begins to write about the body in 1 Corinthians 12, and he says essentially the same type of stuff that he says here in Romans 12, but he adds a few things. One particular thing he says in the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians that he doesn't say in the 12th chapter of Romans, but again in the same discussion. One body, many parts. Not all parts have the same function, he says. And he goes on to say there that if the idea is oh man, I wish I was a hand, but I'm just this knee over here. Just because you're not a hand, you don't cease to be part of the body. An eyelash is a part of the body, and that doesn't seem as whatever as this knee that has to do so much. I'm just an eyelash. And he says, if one part would say something like that, that's silly to think that because you're not of this, you're not part of the body. But then he says this. He says, God so ordered the parts of the body just as He pleased. I like that. Because it means if I am an eyelash and not a big toe, or if I'm a bicep and not a calf, I'm back into my 8th grade health class feels tonight. I am. I'm reminded I'm still part of the body and that God ordered those parts. They must be useful. So, one body, many parts. Serve God with your spiritual gifts. And then he picks up in verse 9, which we don't have time for. So, I would start out and just summarize some stuff in verses 9 through 13, but Jana is in the room and she won't let me. So that's how that works. So y'all are going, Jana, could you sit on the front row in the auditorium next time Andy's preaching? Don't finish it for me, Troy.
I'm sorry.
Troy got there in a hurry, man. He got there in a hurry. That's funny. So here's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to just summarize the rest of the chapter. I mean, we'll pause here or there, but we're going to do a little more summary of the rest of the chapter, and then we're going to get over to Romans 8, or 2 weeks. Over to Romans 8, next week in the auditorium. So, I hope I enlightened you on 8th grade health. And again, if you have legal questions, see Andrew Dodd.